Hey, GD? GD? I don't want to ruin the mic. Can I compress this a little bit?
Yes, sir. Yeah. And okay. 1, 2, 3. Anthony Cantori, call your office. Very good.
Nobody's coming up with it, right? And then Chandler's the bell brothers. Okay. Charlie the Rusty, Mark Casse, Jack Fisher, Zayat, Selection. Okay, so it's top row, but no Pete Dangerfield, no Widener.
No Daryl.
No Daryl. And I don't think I need to hold the box.
No, yeah. And then when Joe is on Rolling Black, he's a lot of times he'll just drop the camera or give you a thumbs up. You gotta turn around and say, "Oh, thank you."
He said he's not going to drop the camera.
Okay, good. We already talked about that.
The jackets to me.
All right, we're going to get started here in less than a minute. And two things. I would like you to please take your seats. And most importantly, shut these damn things off.
Since 1955, the National Museum of Racing and Hall of Fame has recognized and honored the achievements of those horses, jockeys, trainers, and pillars of the turf whose records and reputations have withstood the test of time in the great sport of thoroughbred racing. The achievements and legacies of today's inductees are no exception and have proven to be essential to our sport's rich history. Today's ceremony is unique as we honor and recognize both the class of 2020 and 2021. Welcome to the National Museum of Racing's Hall of Fame induction ceremony. At this time, please welcome the voice of the Breeders' Cup for its first 21 years and the voice of the New York Racing Association from 1990 through his retirement in 2014. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Tom Durkin.
All I can say is welcome back. I don't think I've ever said those two words, welcome back, with such a sense of joyfulness following last year's, or as Queen Elizabeth might call it, annus horribilis. It was indeed a horrible year, but here we are. And indeed, today we have two Hall of Fame ceremonies, the one that did not take place in 2020 and the 2021. And that is quite a daily double. So the question for us today is, and I think it's a fair one, is why are we here? The invitation says we are here for the 2020 and 2021 Horse Racing Hall of Fame inductions, but deeper than that, we are here today because this is a ritual. Rituals are many things. Technically, rituals are activities involving words and gestures and performed in a set sequence. They're characterized by tradition and symbolism. Religion is very big on rituals. Just think of Christmas. Every year, on the same date, you go to grandma's house and you do the same stuff. You got the Christmas tree and all that same food. That's all part of a ritual that reminds us of our ancient roots. The Jews have Elijah invited to sit down for Passover. They've been doing that the same time each year for thousands of years. And the Muslims renew the Hajj with hundreds of thousands of pilgrims returning to Mecca at the same time each year. So, too, we here today have our annual ritual of the Hall of Fame. We meet at the same place, Saratoga Springs, at the same time, the first week in August. And we have our recurring segments of the ceremony. We will introduce each of the Hall of Famers. They will gather as a group before us. A group picture will be taken to memorialize them. That year's honorees will be introduced by a meaningful presenter. And the honorees will be presented with a bronze plaque, noting their accomplishments. And bronze is important and symbolistic because bronze lasts forever, just like their accomplishments. The human honorees will be cloaked in a blue blazer, symbolic of their entry into this sanctorum. Rituals remind us of the importance of what we do. And at times, we as a community need reassuring of that. In this case, it's not a religious community, although I would not argue that horse racing is not a religion. Racing is important because if it weren't, important. Human beings have not and would not have engaged in this for thousands of years. And this ritual, in a ceremonial way, repeats that tradition year after year. We are reminded yearly that what we do is important. And we honor those that have ennobled us through their exploits. Rituals, many of them are rites of passage. Many cultures have coming of age rites of passage and ceremonies. They're passing from childhood to adulthood. That's important. Weddings are ceremonial rituals that are the rite of passage from being single to being married. That's a big change, and I'm still waiting for mine. Funerals are rituals. People passing from life to death. That's the ultimate big change. And today is a rite of passage. Our honorees today are passing from being mere participants to being Hall of Famers. And from this day forward, they shall be known as Hall of Famers. And that's a pretty damn big change. So once again, let the ceremony begin. I introduce the High Priest, John Henriksen, who is the president of the National Museum of Racing Hall of Fame.
Good morning. On behalf of the Board of Trustees of the National Museum of Racing and Hall of Fame, welcome to the 2020-21 induction ceremony. To the inductees, congratulations. You're now among the best of the best. As most of you are aware, we just completed our new Hall of Fame at the museum. We set out to be the best sports Hall of Fame in the country. I think we've accomplished our goal. To those of you who have contributed to the campaign, thank you so much. The campaign is still ongoing, and we could really use your help. If you haven't seen the new Hall of Fame, please come for a visit. You won't be disappointed. Thank you.
Imagine a theater designed to take you to the heart of the story. A must-see destination that first immerses you in the glory and excitement of thoroughbred racing. Now imagine that theater alive. At the center of the story is the horse. Scenes literally immerse the audience in the magical atmosphere of early morning on the farm. A second set of screens draws the audience even closer to the story. We are off to the races, and visuals explode with racing action and the vibrant colors of famous silks. In a transformative moment, a 360-degree screen places the audience at the center of the story, surrounded by the color and pageantry of the sport, as scenes expand to the larger world of thoroughbred racing. The fans, the media, the pillars of the sport, and iconic personalities. Finally, the theater delivers the audience into the presence of the greatest of the greats, those who have been inducted into the Hall of Fame.
It's horse against horse. Induction is the winner. Secretariat is moving like a tremendous
Jockey Derby for Chandler.
You two,
My mom and daddy.
who are no longer with us.
We're here to see what I accomplished in my life.
Inducted into the Racing Hall of Fame in 2003. You didn't feel like you had accomplished enough yet to belong. Do you feel like you belong now?
I've been so blessed. Yeah, I belong now.
Come visit the National Museum of Racing and new Hall of Fame.
I strongly urge you to go over to the Hall of Fame and watch that fantastic production. There are two kinds of people that I've met concerning that beautiful film, and those two kinds of people are these. There are people that love it, love it, love it, and there are people that haven't seen it yet. We lost a couple Hall of Famers this past year. Let's take just a moment or two to remember them in a video tribute. Right now, I'd like to introduce the guy that puts this ceremony together every year. He is the Director of Communications for the National Museum of Racing and Hall of Fame. By the way, when I was a race caller, that had to be the longest stakes name ever. I go, and they're off in the National Museum of Racing and Hall of Fame stakes, you know? Whatever happened to the Sanford or the Travers? You know, made it in. So I don't get paid by the word. Here's Brian Bouillet.
Good morning, everyone. It's great to be back here with you guys after missing last year. This is one of my favorite parts of the show where we get to recognize the legends of the sport. So as I call the Hall of Famers, if you guys could come down here and be recognized, and everybody feel free to applaud for these legends. First up is Javier Castellano. So far in his career, Javier has won close to 5,400 races, 4 Eclipse Awards, a record 6 Travers, and more than $360 million in earnings. From the class of 2017, Javier Castellano. Next up is Shug McGahee. A winner of more than 2,200 races, including 9 Breeders' Cups, the Kentucky Derby, and an Eclipse Award from the class of 2004, Shug McGahee. Ramon Dominguez. A winner of close to 5,000 races, 3 Eclipse Awards, 3 Breeders' Cup races, and right across the street, he holds the record with 68 wins during a Saratoga meet. From the class of 2016, Ramon Dominguez. Nick Zito. A winner of more than 2,000 races, including the Kentucky Derby twice, the Belmont Stakes twice, and the Preakness. From the class of 2005, Nick Zito. Sandy Hawley. A winner of 6,450 races in his career, Eclipse Award, Sovereign Award, and a Hall of Famer in both Canada and the United States. From the class of 1992, Sandy Hawley. Gary Stevens. A winner of almost 5,200 races in North America, an Eclipse Award, the Derby, the Preakness, and the Belmont 3 times each, 11 Breeders' Cup races, an actor and one of the sport's great television personalities. From the class of 1997, Gary Stevens. Chris McCarron. A winner of more than 7,100 races, 2 Eclipse Awards, the Derby, the Preakness, and the Belmont twice each, 9 Breeders' Cup wins. From the class of 1989, Chris McCarron. John Velasquez. A winner of more than 6,300 races and the sport's all-time leader in purse earnings with more than $439 million. 2 Eclipse Awards, 6 Triple Crown race wins, 18 Breeders' Cup wins from the class of 2012, John Velasquez. Jose Santos. A winner of more than 4,000 races, an Eclipse Award, and each of the 3 Triple Crown races, 7 Breeders' Cup wins from the class of 2007, Jose Santos. Bill Mott. A winner of more than 5,100 races, 3 Eclipse Awards, the Derby, the Belmont, 10 Breeders' Cup wins from the class of 1998, Bill Mott. Julie Crone. A winner of more than 3,700 races, the first woman to win a Triple Crown, the first woman to win a Breeders' Cup race, and the first woman to be inducted in the Hall of Fame from the class of 2000, Julie Crone. The King of Saratoga, Angel Cordero Jr. A winner of more than 7,000 races, 2 Eclipse Awards, 5 Triple Crown races, 4 Breeders' Cup wins, 14 riding titles at Saratoga from the class of 1988, Angel Cordero Jr. Janet Elliott. The first woman trainer to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. She twice has led all steeplechase trainers in earnings, ranks 4th all-time in steeplechase earnings, and has 6 wins in the prestigious Colonial Cup. From the class of 2009, Janet Elliott. Last, and certainly not least today, Braulio Baeza. A winner of 3,140 races in North America, 2 Eclipse Awards, the Kentucky Derby, 3 editions of the Belmont Stakes, from the class of 1976, Braulio Baeza. Ladies and gentlemen, a big hand of applause for the legends of our sport. Thank you.
I'd just like to give a little shout out here to Braulio Baeza, who had a couple of health hiccups this year, but he made a point of making the trip to come to Saratoga today. He's down to almost riding weight. Look out, Luis Saez. When the Hall of Fame was founded back in the 1950s, the founders did not want to build a monument to themselves. They were owners and breeders, and so they did not allow owners and breeders to be enshrined in the Hall of Fame. Trainers, jockeys, and of course horses. Well, that was 70 years ago, and those founders have passed. But we needed to do something to honor them. So technically, the Pillars of the Turf are not in the Hall of Fame. They're an adjunct to it. But these are people that certainly deserve to be honored for their great contributions to our sport. The first is Tom Bowling. Let's take a look.
Tom Bowling was a racehorse with an attitude, known for biting and kicking the humans who grew unenthusiastic in their attempts to handle him. But when the large and intimidating son of Lexington ran, he was poetry in motion with brilliant talent. Bred in Kentucky by H.P. McGrath, Tom Bowling was in Lexington's 1870 crop. He was out of the Albion mare Lucy Fowler, who also produced McGrath's 1875 Belmont Stakes winner Calvin. A bright bay with a narrow blaze and stockings on his hind legs, Tom Bowling was put into the care of trainer Ansel Williamson, a former slave who would eventually be elected to the Hall of Fame. From the beginning, Williamson had his hands full with his grumpy charge, but the respected trainer was able to extract the best of Tom Bowling despite the behavioral issues. Tom Bowling lost his career debut by a head in the Hopeful Stakes at Monmouth Park on July 2, 1872, then lost by a neck in the July Stakes 2 days later. Shipped to Saratoga for the Flash Stakes, Tom Bowling figured things out and broke his maiden with a 2-length victory in the $500 added event. Sent back to Monmouth, he romped in winning the $500 added Thespian Stakes, covering 6 furlongs in 1:16 3/4, which was then the fastest time on record by a 2-year-old at that distance. 2 days later, he easily won the $500 added August Stakes to conclude his season. As a 3-year-old in 1873, Tom Bowling was still quite a handful, but he was also the best racehorse in America. He won the 1.5-mile Jersey Derby, the 2-mile Robin Stakes, the 1 3/4 mile Travers Stakes, the 2-mile Jerome Stakes, the 2-mile Annual Sweepstakes, and the 2-mile Dixie Stakes. Tom Bowling's only defeat of the year was by a length to champion filly Lizzie Lucas in the Ocean Hotel Stakes, but he proved the result was a fluke when he defeated her by a dozen lengths 2 days later. With 7 wins in 8 starts, Tom Bowling is retrospectively recognized as the 1873 Horse of the Year and Champion 3-year-old male. As a 4-year-old in 1874, Tom Bowling was undefeated and unchallenged in 4 starts. He won 2 purse races at 1.5 and 3 miles in May in Kentucky, then easily won the Monmouth Cup and Mansion House Stakes both at 2.5 miles in New Jersey during July. With nothing left to prove, Tom Bowling was retired to stud with a career record of 14 wins and 3 seconds from 17 starts and earnings of $36,350. Tom Bowling died in 1897 at the age of 27.
Tom Bowling was selected by the Hall of Fame Historic Review Committee, chaired by Michael Veach. When it comes to horse racing, he's a historian, and he was Google before there was Google, as far as our sport's concerned. Here's Michael.
Can't tell you how happy we are to be here with you in person again after last year. The Historic Review Committee is as the name implies. Thoroughbred racing in what became the United States dates to the colonial days of the 17th century and here in Saratoga Springs in the 1840s. So we have lots of ground to cover while searching for Hall of Famers. Tom Bowling was champion 2-year-old of 1872, and as the video noted, Horse of the Year in 1873. He was bred and owned by Price McGrath and was assessed the best son of the immortal Lexington, a group that includes Hall of Famers, Harry Bassett, and Duke of Magenta. Mr. McGrath and John Morrissey, the latter being the prime mover in the inauguration of thoroughbred racing here in 1863, were partners in the famed gambling houses of Saratoga Springs. As noted in the video, one of Tom Bowling's victories was the Travers, which was described in the press of the time as by 30 yards. I can't think of a better reason for the National Museum of Racing's creation of the Historic Review Committee than Tom Bowling. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Michael. Just a word about the Pillars of the Turf. Again, the folks in the museum, they just didn't want to build a monument to themselves. And these are the pillars of the turf. And a pillar is a thing that gives support to a building, necessary and essential support for a building. And these pillars of the turf are people that give the necessary and essential support for our industry. And two of those people, Keene Dangerfield and George Widener, Jr.
Referred to as the Dean of North American Racing Officials by the Blood Horse, J. Keene Dangerfield Jr. was also lauded by the publication for his traits of integrity, dignity, and commitment. That type of sentiment was universal when it came to Dangerfield, one of the most respected and influential figures in American racing during the 20th century. Born in 1910 in Lexington, Kentucky, Dangerfield was the son of a bluegrass attorney. Although his father was not involved in racing, other family members were prominent in the sport. Dangerfield's grandfather, Major Foxhall Dangerfield, managed Castleton Farm and was the brother-in-law of that farm's legendary owner, James R. Keene. Dangerfield was also the nephew of Algernon Dangerfield, executive secretary of the Jockey Club and a racing steward in New York. His aunt, Elizabeth Dangerfield, owned Halen's Farm and managed Sam Riddle's Faraway Farm, where she oversaw the stud career of Man o' War. Dangerfield seemed set on following his father's path and becoming a lawyer. He attended the University of Virginia for 3 years, but decided to return to Kentucky in favor of pursuing a career in racing. Dangerfield took out a trainer's license in 1934 and had moderate success. He saddled his first stakes winner in 1936, and a half-dozen years later, authored a book about conditioning racehorses titled Training for Fun and Profit, Maybe. Dangerfield then had a stint with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers in World War II. Following the war, he returned to training and enjoyed success with a horse named George Gaines, who won 5 stakes from 1947 through 1948. While stabled at Narragansett Park in Rhode Island in 1948, Dangerfield made the transition from trainer to racing steward. Dangerfield went on to be the chief state steward in Illinois from 1953 through 1956, and held the same position in New Jersey from 1966 through 1973, and Kentucky from 1973 through 1985. He was also an association steward at a total of 17 racetracks. Following his retirement as Kentucky's chief steward in 1985, Dangerfield continued to serve as a steward at Keeneland Racecourse until 1989, when he retired for good after 41 years as a steward. The sport bestowed many honors upon Dangerfield. He was presented with the Eclipse Award of Merit in 1985 and was elected to the Jockey Club in 1989. Dangerfield, who died in 1993, was described by the Thoroughbred Times as a man of quiet dignity who had by inheritance and proclivity a judicial temperament and ability to see both sides of a question raised by advocates who see but one side. For more than a half-century, George D. Widener Jr. basked in the glory of the many great racehorses that carried his colors and the prizes they won on the track. He bred 102 stakes winners, 7 of which were champions. Widener won the Travers Stakes a record-tying 5 times and campaigned a Hall of Fame member in 830. But while Widener benefited from the sport also benefited from his presence and astute leadership. Born in 1889, Widener was elected to the Jockey Club in 1916 at the age of 27. He became an immediate and lasting presence in the sport. That year, he purchased Erdenheim Farm near Philadelphia and won his first stakes race as an owner, the Walden Stakes with homebred Columbine at Pimlico Racecourse. In 1923, Widener bought a portion of historic Elmendorf Farm near Lexington, Kentucky. Widener's parcel of Elmendorf, known as Old Kenny Farm, became the primary home for his breeding operation. Among the stakes winners bred by Widener were the champions Jamestown, Evening Out, and Jaipur. He also bred and owned Hall of Fame member 830, winner of the 1939 Travers. Jaipur won the Belmont and Travers for Widener in 1962. Widener also owned champion Battlefield, another of his record-tying 5 Travers winners. Jaipur's Belmont victory was especially meaningful to Widener, who had long coveted winning the race. Before a crowd of more than 50,000, Jaipur beat Fred Hooper's Admiral's Voyage by a nose. Jaipur joined 830, Lights Up, and Battlefield as Travers winners for Widener. In 1963, he won the Midsummer Derby for the 5th time with Crewman, equaling the Dwyer brothers stable for the most wins in the famous Saratoga fixture. In a leadership capacity, Widener chaired the Jockey Club for 14 years, led the Greater New York Association, served as president of the National Museum of Racing and Hall of Fame, director of the Grayson Foundation, and director of the Thoroughbred Club of America, and named its honored guest in 1942. He was the first person deemed an exemplar of racing by the National Museum of Racing and Hall of Fame in 1971. The statistical impact Widener had as an owner and breeder was staggering. According to the Thoroughbred record, Widener won 1,243 races in his colors of light blue and dark blue hoops, totaling more than $9 million in purse earnings. Horses bred by Widener won another 4,524 races and more than $16 million in purses. Widener died in December of 1971 at the age of 82. The New York Times described Widener as a beloved racing figure whose courtly manner in victory and defeat made him a favorite of the racing world for many decades, and added, the tradition closest to his heart was horse racing.
Our next pillar of the turf, I'm pretty sure that many of you in the room knew her. She was beloved. Let's take a look at a bit of the life of Alice Chandler.
Alice Headley Chandler's association with thoroughbred racing and breeding started out small and away from the spotlight, but her bloodline suggested she would have a significant impact on the sport, and that was certainly the case. Born in 1926 in Lexington, Kentucky, Chandler's father, Hal Price Headley, was an influential racing figure, credited as a driving force behind the establishment of Keeneland Racecourse, where he served as president from its opening in 1936 through 1951. Upon her father's death in 1962, Alice Chandler inherited 4 of his broodmares and 286 acres upon which she built her own legacy through the name of Mill Ridge Farm. With the land and foundational mares, the then 36-year-old mother of 4 went right to work and began establishing her foothold in the sport. Chandler expanded Mill Ridge's acreage to more than 1,000 at its peak size. The farm's breakthrough into the big time was the breeding of Sir Ivor, a foal of 1965 from the second crop of Sir Gaylord, a half-brother to Secretariat. Out of the Mr. Trouble mare Attica, Sir Ivor was purchased at the 1966 Keeneland July sale for $42,000 by Raymond Guest, the U.S. ambassador to Ireland. Attica was one of the original mares bequeathed to Chandler by her father. Sir Ivor went on to be a multiple stakes winner as a juvenile and won the Epsom Derby, 2,000 Guineas, Champion Stakes, and DC International as a 3-year-old in 1968. Sir Ivor's success and status as the first American bred sold at public auction to win the Epsom Derby put Mill Ridge on the map. It also started the trend of American-bred European Classic winners and was a major turning point for Keeneland and the American commercial market. Chandler went on to become a respected leader in American racing and breeding and lent her time and knowledge to many of the sports organizations. She served as chairperson of the University of Kentucky's Gluck Equine Research Foundation, president of the Kentucky Thoroughbred Association, and as a director of the Breeders' Cup, Keeneland, and the Thoroughbred Owners and Breeders Association. In 2005, Chandler was honored by the Thoroughbred Club of America as the honored guest at its testimonial dinner. In 2009, she received another of racing's highest honors, the Eclipse Award of Merit. Chandler passed her passion for racing and breeding to the next generation of her family. Her 4 children, Mike, Reynolds, Headley, and Patricia, all have connections to Mill Ridge Farm.
We have a group of 4 here, including Reynolds Bell, to speak.
Good morning. Before I get started, I'd like to introduce a few people on stage with me. This is Mom's husband, Dr. John Chandler. My older brother, Mike. And my younger brother, Heatley. As a child, Alice Heatley Chandler, Mom in my case, had the privilege of growing up in a world that was exactly what she could have chosen had she been given the opportunity. That world was Beaumont Farm. On Beaumont, there was plenty of land to roam, horses to ride, tractors to drive, card and craps games to play, crops to harvest, and dogs and cats to raise. She loved it all, and it was a template, if you will, for this honor today. The universe that world revolved around at Beaumont was her father, Hal Price Heatley, whom she adored and taught her everything a sponge like her could soak up. Upon his death in 1962, on 286 acres of Beaumont Farm, Mom started her own farm, which today is known as Mill Ridge. Little did she realize in 1965 there would be a bay colt born that would change her world as she knew it. Hung at his hips on delivery, and a fighter from the start, Sir Ivor became one of those blessings Mom often referred to when asked about her life. In 1968, with world-famous jockey Lester Piggott in the saddle, Sir Ivor came storming out of the pack from far back to win the English Derby for Ambassador Raymond Guest and trainer Vincent O'Brien. It was an experience of a lifetime for Mom and brother Mike, who celebrated the moment in England with her. Sir Ivor went on to become 1968 British Horse of the Year. Retired at Claiborne Farm, Sir Ivor was among the stallions of his generation to propagate the influence of American bloodlines into the international pedigrees and boost the economic benefit to the United States sales markets. The push for brilliance of the U.S. pedigrees also benefited Mill Ridge in the early 1980s. With the help of her husband, John, and her team at Mill Ridge, it became the home for mares owned by Juddmonte Farm, Darley Stud, Shadwell Farm, Her Majesty the Queen, Lord Howard de Walden, and the Thoroughbred Corp. It also became the home of stallions Diocese and Gone West. Since the year 2000, Mill Ridge has raised or sold 36 Grade 1 stakes winners, which have included 2 Horses of the Year, a Derby winner, and 8 Breeders' Cup Stakes winners. Her legacy at Mill Ridge has been carried on by her son Heatley and grandson Price. In life, Mom never really saw a challenge too great, a mountain too tall to climb, a road too far to travel, if it were for the benefit of the horse or the thoroughbred horse industry. She would applaud the direction of the industry today with the adoption of the Horse Integrity and Safety Authority, and thank those who have worked endless weeks, months, and years to accomplish this major endeavor. Mom also felt being a woman should be no barrier for what she could accomplish, provided it was accompanied with integrity and effort. She would often say, "This is a man's world. I have to be in it, so let's get busy and get it done." Her loves in life were her family and husband, John, of 49 years, Mill Ridge Farm and the horses and people associated with it, as well as Keeneland Racecourse, which was co-founded by her father in 1936. Mom kept it pretty simple. Take care of the horse, and the horse will take care of you. We heard that often growing up. She would have been incredibly humbled by this award today and would want to thank all those people and horses in her life that made it possible. On behalf of her family, I want to thank the National Museum of Racing and Hall of Fame for this very special honor. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. All right, let's go on to the class of 2020. And first among them, jockey Darrell McHargue.
Darrell McHargue rode his first winner in 1972 at Arlington Park and quickly ascended to the top of his profession. By the end of the decade, he had set records, won prestigious awards, and earned the respect of his peers and racing fans for being one of thoroughbred racing's greatest jockeys. A native of Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, McHargue won 2,553 races, with purse earnings of more than $39.6 million in his career. In 1978, at the age of 23, he won both the Eclipse Award for Outstanding Jockey and the George Wolfe Memorial Jockey Award. That year, McHargue set a North American earnings record of $6,188,353, breaking the mark set by Steve Cawthon the previous year. McHargue was already an established star at that point. In 1974, he won a career-best 405 races, ranking second in all of North America behind only Chris McCarron. That year, McHargue began a 6-year streak during which he ranked in the top 10 nationally in earnings. In 1975, he won the Preakness Stakes aboard Master Derby. From 1976, when Equibase began compiling graded stakes data, through 1988, McHargue won 79 graded races. His Grade 1 wins during that time included the Santa Margarita Invitational Handicap, San Juan Capistrano, Hopeful Stakes, San Antonio Stakes, Charles H. Strube Stakes, Swap Stakes, Santa Anita Derby, and Hollywood Derby, among others. McHargue won 6 graded stakes with Hall of Famer John Henry, and also won stakes aboard Hall of Famers Ancient Title and My Juliet, as well as with standouts such as General Assembly, Run Dusty Run, and Vigors, among others. McHargue won 6 races on a single card at Santa Anita in both 1978 and 1979. He also enjoyed international success riding in Ireland and England in the 1980s, winning several stakes, including the 1984 Irish St. Leger at the Curragh and the 1984 Jockey Club Cup at Ascot. Following his career as a jockey, McHargue became a steward in California in 1990. He was named the state's chief steward in 2015.
Darrell was not able to make it out here today, but we will take the plaque out to him and for a special presentation in California later on this year. So congratulations to Darrell McHargue. I'm pretty sure you're watching, Darrell. Welcome to the Hall of Fame. One of my favorites, and certainly one of the great fan favorites. In the class of 2020, Wise Dan.
Bred in Kentucky by Morton Fink, Wise Dan captured the hearts of race fans during a 5-year career in which he won 23 of 31 starts and earned more than $7.5 million. Named Horse of the Year in 2012 and 2013, Wise Dan also won Eclipse Awards for Champion Older Male and Champion Male Turf Horse in both of those years, becoming the first horse to win the same 3 Eclipse Awards in consecutive years. His 19 graded stakes victories included consecutive editions of the Breeders' Cup Mile. Wise Dan became the first gelding since Hall of Famer John Henry to be named Horse of the Year, and only the sixth to earn consecutive honors for Horse of the Year, joining Hall of Fame members Curlin, Cigar, Affirmed, Forgo, and Secretariat. Trained by Charlie Lopresti, Wise Dan stamped himself as a superstar as a 5-year-old in 2012 when he romped in the Ben Ally Stakes at Keeneland, a scintillating 10.5 length victory in track record time of 1:46.63 for 1 mile.
He is back, and he is back in style. Wise Dan and John Velasquez to crush the field in the Ben Ally.
He then put himself in the running for Horse of the Year with an impressive 3-race stretch. A runner-up finish in the Stephen Foster Handicap at Churchill Downs, a 5-length victory in the 4-Star Dave Handicap at Saratoga, and a commanding win in the Woodbine Mile in Canada. Wise Dan then closed out his campaign and locked up Horse of the Year by defeating a top international field in the Breeders' Cup Mile at Santa Anita.
And win it he will. Wise Dan, super impressive Breeders' Cup Mile.
As a 6-year-old, Wise Dan's domination continued, with 5 straight victories to start the year, including a trio of Grade 1s, before his 9-race win streak came to an end. Wise Dan returned to Santa Anita that November and repeated in the Breeders' Cup Mile to wrap up his 2nd consecutive championship campaign. Wise Dan was back as a 7-year-old in 2014 and went undefeated in 4 starts. He took Keeneland's Makers 46 Mile in April and followed with a win in the Woodford Reserve Turf Classic on Derby Day at Churchill. Wise Dan then battled a bout of colic and underwent emergency surgery. He returned in late August at Saratoga and was all heart in winning a thrilling edition of the Bernard Baruch Handicap by a nose. An ankle injury, however, prevented him from an attempt at a 3rd Breeders' Cup Mile. Wise Dan resumed training in 2015 as an 8-year-old with the Woodbine Mile targeted for his return, but a tendon injury less than a week before the race convinced Fink and Lopresti to retire their champion. Wise Dan set 3 track records during his career. In addition to the aforementioned Keeneland mark, he also set the standard for a mile at both Woodbine and Santa Anita. He also set a record with 7 graded stakes wins at Keeneland and won 17 of his final 19 starts. Hall of Fame jockey John Velasquez described Wise Dan as the best horse I've ever ridden.
Wouldn't we like to have a few more like him around? Here's one of the guys that made it happen, trainer Charlie Lopresti.
What an kind of choked up a little bit watching those races. What an incredible honor to be here and be associated with a horse like Wise Dan. I have so many great memories of this place, the racetracks I traveled, the people I met. On behalf of the Fink family, I don't know how to describe how I'm feeling right now. Watching those races brought back so many good memories. Wise Dan's an incredible horse. He touched the lives of a lot of people. He was just an incredible athlete. I was so lucky. Trainers their whole life try to have a horse like that, and I was so lucky to be associated with him and have him. I want to thank everybody here, and what a great honor to receive this award on behalf of the Fink family. My only regret is that Mr. Fink is not here to accept this award, because he was so proud of that horse. He used to tell me all the time, he said, "Charlie, you know, it's the only thing that keeps me alive is that horse." He's traveled everywhere to watch him run, and he was a very sick man, and I think it put years on his life, and I thank him for the opportunity to have a horse like that. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Charlie, and thank you from a lot of people for making that great career happen. Next up, another member of the class of 2020, Mark Casse.
A native of Indianapolis, Indiana, Mark Casse has enjoyed a career of consistent excellence in both the United States and Canada. Casse was 12 years old when he and his father, Norman, rode together in a horse van from Florida to attend the 1973 Kentucky Derby. After witnessing the mighty Secretariat win the Run for the Roses, young Casse decided that following in his father's footsteps to pursue a career with thoroughbreds would be his life's calling. Casse learned the game from his father, who bought and sold horses on a small Indiana farm before relocating the family to Ocala, Florida, and founding Cardinal Hill Stable. Casse took out his trainer's license at the age of 17 and saddled his first winner at Keeneland Racecourse in 1979. Casse's career began to take off in Canada, where he has won a record 13 Sovereign Awards for Outstanding Trainer and 11 leading trainer titles at Woodbine. He has won 7 Canadian Triple Crown races, the Queen's Plate in 2014 and 18, the Prince of Wales Stakes in 2009, 12, 13, and 18, and the Breeders' Stakes in 2007.
But nothing stood in his way. War of Will won the Preakness.
In 2019, Casse won his first American Triple Crown races, the Preakness Stakes with War of Will and the Belmont Stakes with Sir Winston. At the time of his election to the Hall of Fame, Casse had trained Eclipse Award winners Classic Empire, Shamrock Rose, Tepin, and World Approval and won 5 Breeders' Cup races. Casse has trained 18 horses that have won $1 million or more, including 2-time champion Tepin, winner of 11 graded or group stakes, including the Group 1 Queen Anne at Royal Ascot in England. Through May of 2021, Casse had won 3,072 races, with purse earnings of more than $187 million, which ranks 9th all time.
And here to introduce our honoree and also give him a new item for his wardrobe, here's Aaron Yagoda.
Good morning, everyone. I will never forget the phone call last week. It was Mark Casse, and he said, Aaron, you asked me who was giving my introduction speech the other day. Well, Tina and I decided it would be you. I was both humbled and honored beyond belief, and like an idiot, the first thing that came out of my mouth was, did everyone else say no? Are you sure? Mark replied, yup, it's you. When I think about all the people Mark knows or trains for in racing, many even seated here today, for me, his smallest owner, yet technically I've been there the longest, to be given this honor is unimaginable. But this is Mark Casse, the person. Mark treats every one of us like a friend, and he makes us feel like we are his only owner, regardless of how many horses we have with him. I would be remiss if I did not mention 2 important people in Mark's life that unfortunately aren't here today in person, but are definitely with us in spirit. His father, Norman Casse, and Harry Mangurian. Mark, they are both smiling and down on you with pride, seeing you stand up here today. I would like to digress for a moment and tell you how I came to meet Mark. It was 1999 at the Obrius April Under Track Show. I was sitting at a table not too far from Mark, and during one of the breaks, Mark walked by me and said, I want to talk to you after the Breeze show. I was panicked. I've been coming to the 2-year-old sales for a few years, and at that point, never really had spoken to Mark. Mark was the general manager of Mockingbird Farm and the leading consignor of 2-year-olds at the time, and now he wants to talk to me. All I could think about for the next 2 hours until the Breeze show ended was, what did I do to upset this guy? Well, the Breeze show ends, and here comes Mark to talk to me. He said, Aaron, I'm Mark Casse. He said, you've seen you around the last few years, and I could tell you have a love and passion for the game, but we never had a chance to actually sit down and talk. He said he'd like to help me, and I panicked for nothing. He went to say he's very busy at this April sale selling horses, but if I came back to the June sale, we would do something together. Then he got up from my table and walked away. I immediately got that feeling that I just met someone who'll be a lifelong friend. I couldn't wait till that June catalog came, and in the mail, I pored over it for days, then flew down to watch the Breeze show intently. Mark told me to meet him at 10 a.m. on the sale day, and I was ready. Mark met me exactly on time, where he told me to be, and I handed him my short list. I told him I only want fillies, and I was comfortable in the $25,000 to $40,000 range. I had these fillies sorted by hip number, pedigree, consigner, barn number, workout time, gallop out time, and any previous sales history. Mark politely took my short list, read it for about 10 seconds, and then crumpled it up right in front of me and tossed it on the ground. And he said, "We can't make any money with this list." So the sale gets started, and we buy our first colt for $5,000. Then about an hour or so later, we buy our second colt for $16,000. Then Mark turned to me and said, "That's a great start for us. We're done shopping. Go home." About 3 weeks later, the colts are training up a Woodbine, and my phone rings at 7:30 in the morning. And as owners, we all know that lump in your throat feeling when your trainer calls at that time. I answered, and Mark said, "Hey, Air, it's Mark." I said, "What's wrong?" He said, "Nothing. Why?" "I was just calling to let you know that our colts worked this morning, and they worked quite well. In fact, we got an offer for $60,000 US for the pair." I said, "Wow, $60,000. We should probably think about taking it." "We did. I was just calling to ask you where to send the check." Well, Mark did exactly what he said the day I met him. He helped me, and my intuition was correct that day as well. I made a lifelong friend. There is a great quote by Maya Angelou that goes something like this: "People might not remember what you say, people might not remember what you do, but people will always remember how you make them feel." This quote couldn't be more true to the point when it comes to Mark. I had a few horses up at Woodbine with him, yet I barely got to see my horses run. I was living near Belmont Park on Long Island. Simulcasting was in its infancy. Belmont nor the OTB by my house showed the Woodbine races, and it was very hard for me. The only way I could see my horses run was to watch them on my computer using an old dial-up modem. I would have to shrink the picture down so small just to make it clear and not distort. I was frustrated and told Mark one night that as much as I loved our close friendship, racing at Woodbine wasn't for me. Mark, being Mark, said, "Air, I love you and completely understand," and left it at that. Well, 2 days later, I'm home and my doorbell rings. It was a FedEx delivery in a very large box from a Mr. Mark Casse. I opened this huge box, and inside was a satellite receiver and a dish with installation instructions. And a note that just said, "Love, Mark." I called my TV guy to install the dish up on my roof, and once he finished installing it, I turned it on, and it only got one channel. Yup, the live feed from Woodbine, right in my living room on my big screen TV. So Mark, you made me feel special then, and 22 years later, you're still making me feel special. In our sport, as well in life, loyalty and longevity are hard to come by, but with Mark, it's commonplace. Not only has he had the same owners for a long time, but most of his assistants, office staff, and employees have been with him from the beginning. And Mark would be the first to tell you he couldn't do it all and wouldn't be up here today without the horses, owners, and staff around him. We all know there's no I in team, but there is a T, and on Mark's team, that T is Tina. Tina's Mark's wife, Mark's life, and probably his favorite owner. Okay, definitely his favorite owner. They make a great and powerful combination. Mark's success is not by luck, nor is it by accident. Owners are attracted to Mark because he's a great communicator, a great horseman, very professional, and he gets results like we've just seen in this video. Well, Mark, you made it. You've been elected to the Hall of Fame. This means 2 things. 1, you're getting pretty old. You've been doing this a long time. And 2, you're among the best our sport has ever had. You've reached the pinnacle of your chosen profession and now are being recognized for it. But we all know you're far from done adding to your list of impressive achievements. There is a Derby with your name on it. This past year, that Derby was in Tampa, but the one in Kentucky awaits you as well. Luckily, the Hall of Fame has now gone digital, so it'll be easier for them to keep updating your plaque. It is now my honor to introduce Mark Casse, a great trainer, husband, father, and friend, to the highest honor and accolade in our sport, the National Racing Hall of Fame. You deserve it. We love you. Congratulations.
I don't know. It's going to be tough. I did an interview the other day with Jonathan Kitchen, and he said, "I'm making the over-under 1 minute and 30 seconds into your speech before you start crying." I said, "I won't make it through the introduction." Let me start by saying I have a better chance of winning the Kentucky Derby than getting through this speech without losing my composure. First, I'd like to thank the Hall of Fame committee, museum directors, volunteers, and contributors, who without them, none of this would be here today. None of us would be here today. Thank you to the Hall of Fame voters that felt me worthy of this great achievement. I've been very fortunate in my life to win many big races and awards, but none greater than this honor. The last few weeks I've spent much time reflecting on various paths my life has taken. It amazes me that every experience, relationship, meeting, conversation with friends, families, and clients has molded and shaped my career. Who would have thought 50 years ago, as I slept right over there in the parking lot, the Fasig-Tipton parking lot with my dad, and had breakfast every morning at the Saratoga Snack Shack, that I would be standing here today. Horse racing has always been my life. When I was little, I was reading the racing form instead of comic strips. The worst day of the week was Sunday because there wasn't a form. When my friends were trying to figure out what they wanted to do with their lives, I always knew what I wanted to be: a horse trainer. There was a short period of time when I dabbled with the idea of being a jockey, but I soon found out I enjoyed eating, lacked the heart and courage to follow that career. The good news is there's no weight requirements for trainers. Otherwise, many of us would be ineligible. We live in a sport ruled by the most beautiful athletes in the world, and I would not be standing here without having great horses. But I can honestly say the people who have touched my life influenced me the most. Obviously, my dad, Norman, greatly encouraged me to follow my passion. My dad used to say that unless it whinnied, I had no interest in it. My father was a huge part of my education with horses, and I inherited my love of racing from him. On this journey, many family members have had to make sacrifices for me to pursue my career, but none greater than my mom. Tina's going to read this one.
When I was 13, my mom and dad were getting divorced. My mom was going to leave Florida and move back to Indiana to be around her family. There was a lot of discussion about which parent I was going to live with. If I went with Mom, it would have meant I would have been taken away from the farm and horse racing. I still remember my dad telling me that he would make sure that I would get a racing form every day, and he would take me to the races every chance that he could. As much as I loved my mom, I was devastated with the thought of not being around racehorses. As the time drew closer, I finally couldn't take it anymore. I asked my mom a simple question that would change the course of my life. Mom, do you truly love me? She replied, with all my heart. I then said, Mom, if you truly love me, you will let me stay with Dad. I know that had to have killed her, but she granted me the truest sign of love by allowing me to stay on the farm. Who knows where my life would be today if it wasn't for her sacrifice. Can we continue?
Okay. I must also thank Harry Mangurian, my former boss, who helped me through some of my leaner years and saw something in me that others didn't. Together, we teamed up to have one of the most successful horse breeding operations in the world. He also served as a father figure, a mentor, and a friend that gave me so much knowledge about life and business. As a young boy, I once flew with my dad to Toronto, Canada to watch horses run at Woodbine. Little did I know at the time how important Woodbine in Canada would be to my career. I cannot thank my friends north of the border enough. I would be remiss not to mention two individuals that have been essential in making Woodbine the first-class racetrack it is today. Thank you, Jim Lawson and Sue Leslie, for your unyielding efforts. I would also like to thank the Canadian voters that have honored me with 13 Sovereign Awards as a leading trainer in Canada. I have a quick story I want to tell you. So my son, Colby, I think was 10 or 11, and Tina, we went out to dinner, and we were there, and I said, Colby, Mom and Dad have to go to Canada tomorrow. Dad's up for a Sovereign Award. And he said, you think you have a chance, Dad? I said, well, I think we have a pretty good chance. Yes. He goes, yeah, Todd Pletcher doesn't run much in Canada. Todd. As many of you know, I've just recently sired my first graded stakes winning trainer when Norman won the Schuylerville with Pretty Birdie last month. Norman is very instrumental in my career. Without him, we would never achieve the success that we have in the last 10 years south of the border. He is the one who pushed me so hard to branch out and start racing again in places like Florida, Kentucky, and New York. He was a large part of the success of many of our good ones like Tepin, World Approval, and Classic Empire. At about the same time Norman came aboard, there was a career-changing time when we started training for Jack and Debbie Oxley. The Oxleys presented me with the opportunity to attend auctions and buy horses, types of athletes I craved. I've been very fortunate to train many Grade 1 horses for them, none more talented than the Breeders' Cup and Eclipse winning champion, Classic Empire. More importantly, they have become great friends. In 2012, I received a phone call one morning from an owner that I trained 50% of one horse for, but never talked to him. I can still remember the exact place I was standing when I got the call. He introduced himself, told me he was interested in claiming, buying, and running horses at Woodbine. I quickly said, I'm your man. Little did I know that conversation would lead to 2 Queen's Plate winners, my first Breeders' Cup winner, first Classic winner, and many Grade 1 wins. He's not just a great owner, but a wonderful man. Thank you, Gary. The great thing happened in this very pavilion in 2012. I had recently started training one horse for a man, thanks to a lifelong friend in David Greathouse. Together with David, he purchased a beautiful filly by Bernstein and sent her to us to break and train in Ocala. Who would have known at the time she would become what I consider our greatest victory of all time, the Queen Anne at Royal Ascot. Thank you, Robert and Joan Masterson, for the mighty Tepin. Charlotte Weber, for everything you've done for me and my family through the years. Thank you for some of the many great horses you entrusted me to train, headed by the Breeders' Cup winner, World Approval. You have been an icon, an inspiration in this sport for over 50 years. I know one of my dad's proudest moments was to tell people his son trained for Live Oak. It's kind of ironic that I first started this relationship while having dinner with his beautiful wife, Carol, at the Hall of Fame Gala. Jack and Debbie Oxley invited Tina and I to the ball, and I was lucky enough to be seated next to Tracy Farmer. Through our conversations, he mentioned to me he would like me to train a few horses for him. Who would have believed that 2 years later we would win the Belmont together with his homebreds for Winston? Thank you. I have to thank one of my dearest friends, Aaron Ugoda, wherever he is. Not only does he make me laugh, and entertain me, but he's introduced me to John, Len, and Lois Green of DJ Stable. In just our first year training for them, we have been lucky enough to have Helium, the Tampa Bay Derby winner and Kentucky Derby starter. Looking back over the last 40 years, I've been so lucky to have a great team by my side. Mitch Downs has been with me 38 years. David Adams, Cindy Black, Robbie Hoffer, Richard Lowe, and Catherine Sullivan over 25 years. And though he has only been with me for 5 years, David Carroll has been influential in our success. He's a great horseman and a person. Gone but not forgotten, Mike Anderson, who we lost 5 years ago. If he still had been alive, this would have been his 40th year with us. I have to also thank Robert McMartin. He's the guy I turn to when I don't have the answers. He's truly a genius in his great field and a great friend in his field. There are so many wonderful owners and teammates I would like to thank, but if I listed them all, no one would make the first race. Last, but certainly not least, I met someone 20 years ago that would change my life forever. Together we started Casse Racing as partners. Though I am the one that often receives the accolades, this person is the brains behind the operation. She oversees both our companies in the US and Canada. She is just not my best friend, but she's my beautiful and loving wife, Tina. There are so many people that help me achieve these goals, but none greater than her. Tina supports, carries me through ups and downs, and yes, I know, I've heard 1,000,000 times, I married up. I love her. In closing, my dad and I first visited the Hall of Fame here in Saratoga in 1972. When I was 11, I still remember walking around with my mouth wide open in amazement. At the end of the visit, I confidently told my dad, I will be in here someday. As any good father will do, he said, yes, Mark, you will. Well, we did it.
And Mark, I would like to add my personal thanks, really, because I bet $10 on the under. Jonathan could have put the under at 12 seconds, and I was still taking the under. Aaron, and there's probably a job for you writing for late-night TV comedians, so there's that career you can look ahead to. Let's bring up our next, or let's look at a video of our next member of the class of 2021, Jack Fisher.
A native of Unionville, Pennsylvania, Jack Fisher won his first race as a trainer in 1988 with Carl Lewis at Middleburg, Virginia. Fisher became a dominant force on the steeplechase circuit early in the 21st century, leading all steeplechase trainers in wins for the first time in 2003 and topping the list an additional 12 times through 2020. In 2004, Fisher topped the earnings list for the first of 8 times to date. Fisher is the only trainer in steeplechase history to surpass $1 million in purse earnings in a year, something he has accomplished 5 times. Fisher trained 2-time Eclipse Award winner and Hall of Fame member Goodnight Shirt, one of only 3 horses to earn $1 million in steeplechase racing. Goodnight Shirt won a total of 10 graded stakes and twice set the single-season earnings record. Fisher also trained 2017 Eclipse Award winner Scorpiencer and 2020 champion Moscato, as well as an additional 18 horses that have won division championships. Fisher has won the Temple Gwathmey 6 times, 5 editions of the Iroquois, 4 runnings of the A.P. Smithwick, 3 renewals of the Lonesome Glory, and both the Colonial Cup and Grand National twice. With Saluter, Fisher won 6 consecutive editions of the Virginia Gold Cup and 4 runnings of the Virginia Hunt Cup. Fisher has won the Virginia Gold Cup 12 times as a trainer and 9 times as a rider, both records. Fisher rode Saluter to each of his Gold Cup victories. Through May of 2021, Fisher has won 595 career steeplechase races and ranks second all-time in purse earnings with more than $17.9 million behind only Hall of Famer Jonathan Shepard.
This is a 40 long. I hope it works. Yeah, Taylor got it right. Welcome to the Hall of Fame.
So, thank you. That was a tough act to follow there, Mark.
Just don't cry.
Well, no, I remember like 4 or 5 years ago that we were on a panel together, and he started out by he didn't do well in school, and Graham Motion was there, I was there, and we all followed like, yeah. So I'm not really cut out for this. But first, I'd like to thank Casse for this great spot, because I did talk to Todd Wyatt, who was Shepard's longtime assistant, and he said when Shepard was inducted, it was done on the lawn on the Hall of Fame. This is much nicer. Also, I want to thank the National Racing Museum. I went there yesterday. What they've done there with their TVs and the interaction, anybody that hasn't been there in the last couple of years should go. It's outstanding. To me, this is extremely humbling, and it's a terrific honor. I want to thank everybody for coming, for a lot of you from far away. But again, the most important thing to me were the horses. And I want to thank the Saratoga Special. They did an article on every trainer inducted their top 20 horses. The first 2 I gave them was Carl Lewis and Woody Boy Wood. Those were the first 2 champions I trained. And then I looked on Equibase and on the list. But to me, those are the horses that got the ball going, and I started getting better and better horses. And to me, it's all about the horses. That they're, I just try not to screw them up too bad. I also, it's not a me, it's a team. And for me, I've had 3 assistants in 30 years. Mary McLaughlin, Julie Lombardi, now McGurk, and Sandra Webb. And for me, an assistant doesn't just run the barn, take care of the horses, all that. They also drive the trailer to the races. They run horses. They do everything. They do more work than I do. And the important thing to me and to them is they always put the horses first. Again, the most important for me is my wife, Sheila. That Sheila started out not only as, well, I think probably before we got married, was assistant, chief galloping girl, hot walker, groom, you name it. Also owner, she was the one that got us to claim Carl Lewis the first time, which turned out to be the first great horse. Also for your support and also for your advice. So I thank you. I'd also like to thank my parents for, damn. Joe Clancy told me not, too many pages. Yeah, well, we'll just wing this thing now. So anyway, I'd like to thank my parents for teaching me integrity. Again, I wasn't easy, but I want to thank them for that. And also, my father trained both steeplechase and flat horses. I worked in the barn growing up as a teenager, galloping, doing the whole thing. I remember the first horse I rode was a horse named Juggernaut. And Juggernaut was champion the year before I rode him. And I rode him and I thought I was really good. And then I realized that it's all the horse. And it pretty much is always all the horse. I also need to thank my wife's parents, Rufus and Sheila Williams, because they've allowed me to use their place and make it into what I think is a premier training facility. Also as owners, and also for just giving me advice. We're not going by the list anymore. I'd also like to thank some of my early owners, that were my father's owners, Mr. and Mrs. Dixon and Alec Campbell, for their support early. They also helped get the ball going, and they were terrific friends. And again, the steeplechase community, that everybody works together. I consider everybody terrific friends. I'd also like to thank the Bruton Street group. Mike Hankin, Charlie Knoll, Charlie Fenwick, terrific friends and great horses. I'd like to thank Sonny and Ann Vile for, again, Goodnight Shirt, but not just Goodnight Shirt, for being great friends. And, I thank you. And I probably should have had this printed out better, but anyway, that's about it. Again, this is what happened years ago with the Saratoga Special. I did an ad. We won a bunch of races up here. I did an ad in there. I thanked everybody by name. I got home. I missed one person, my wife. So since then, I haven't listed people by names, but I want to thank all the owners. It's a team effort, and thank you all.
Jack, congratulations on a richly deserved honor today. Up next, our next inductee for 2021. It took him 37 years to do it, but American Pharoah got it done.
And they're into the stretch, and American Pharoah makes his run for glory as they come into the final furlong. Frosted is second with 1/8 of a mile to go. American Pharoah's got a 2-length lead. Frosted is all out at the 16th pole, and here it is. The 37-year wait is over. American Pharoah is finally the one. American Pharoah has won the Triple Crown.
American Pharoah became thoroughbred racing's first Triple Crown winner since affirmed in 1978, when he swept the Kentucky Derby, Preakness Stakes, and Belmont Stakes in 2015. He also became a national sensation. Bred in Kentucky by owner Zayat Stables, American Pharoah was trained by Hall of Famer Bob Baffert and ridden by Hall of Famer Victor Espinoza. Beginning his career in California, American Pharoah won the Eclipse Award for Champion 2-year-old male in 2014, thanks to Grade 1 victories in the Del Mar Futurity and Frontrunner Stakes. As a 3-year-old, American Pharoah took the Arkansas route to the Triple Crown by winning the Grade 2 Rebel Stakes and the Grade 1 Arkansas Derby at Oaklawn Park. In the Kentucky Derby, American Pharoah held off a game firing line to win the Run for the Roses.
American Pharoah and Victor Espinoza have won the Kentucky Derby!
2 weeks later, he crushed the Preakness field at Pimlico by 7 lengths to set up his coronation at the Belmont. Following the Triple Crown Series, American Pharoah went on to win the Grade 1 Haskell Invitational at Monmouth Park and the Grade 1 Breeders' Cup Classic, setting a track record of 2 minutes and 7/100 of a second for 1.25 miles at Keeneland.
Into the final furlong, there will be a 4th jewel in the crown. He's an everlasting credit to the sport. American Pharoah has belted a grand slam in the Breeders' Cup Classic. He wins it in 2 minutes flat.
American Pharoah was voted Horse of the Year and Champion 3-year-old male for 2015 and retired with 9 wins from 11 starts and earnings of $8.6 million.
Accepting owners of American Pharoah, Ahmed and Justin Zayat.
Mr. Chairman, distinguished member of the Hall of Famer, thank you very much for voting American Pharoah to be immortal. This is very, very humbling for us. But when I was trying to think of what I'm going to talk about, I probably can talk for another 2 hours about what American Pharoah meant for me. But I realized this is not about the Zayat family. This is about American Pharoah, at what American Pharoah have achieved. We all saw the wonderful video of American Pharoah as a racehorse. But I want to talk about American Pharoah as the people's horse, the horse that have excited fans. And I have 3 very memorable stories that are entrenched in my memory. One, obviously, is the Belmont stake and the voice of Larry saying, 37 years in waiting is finally over, and American Pharoah is finally the one. But then for me and for my family, it was an elation. It was surreal. I didn't believe it really happened. And looking at the crowd and what have happened for minutes and minutes and minutes of pure elation, hugging, that sight will always be in my heart. And when I was accepting the award, I didn't know what to say. All I said that this is America's horse. This is everybody's horse. And from that time, we tried to make American Pharoah people to understand who that horse really is. Not only his beautiful demeanor and kindness and sweetness. Forget about how his thermodynamic was, the horse floated, but what he have done to everybody. And I promised ourselves that we'll keep our door open and let every single fan believe and feel that this is their horse. Just looking around, I spotted a fan who's wearing American Pharoah's t-shirt. The horse have done this impact. The second memory I had when here in Saratoga, I've never seen 20,000 people coming in the morning to see a horse galloping. I don't think we will ever see that sight again, but again, that was American Pharoah. American Pharoah loved the crowd, loved the people. And the third and finally was his sent home, or his last ever, which is in Keeneland. How ironic, he started in Keeneland and ended in Keeneland. The parade of entourage, of police escorts, of miles and miles, and fan literally waving for him coming off the plane, going to Keeneland Racecourse. These are memories that I will never forget of what American Pharoah meant for the sport and the public. One final thing, I'm sorry I didn't write a word, but I want to congratulate the class of 2020 and 21, particularly Mark Casse and Todd Pletcher, who I had the pleasure of training for me. Thank you very much. One final thing, thank you, Bob Baffert, for not just a brilliant training job, but for opening your barn for every single person to come and visit American Pharoah. Thank you very much.
So American Pharoah, 37 years in the waiting. Takes a lot of people to make a Triple Crown winner. Trainer, jockey, breeder, owner, what have you. But frankly, he won the Triple Crown because of me. I deserve all the credit. 9 times I walked into that announcer's booth on Belmont Day, thinking I would walk out calling a Triple Crown winner. I was 0 for 9. My contract was up in the year 2015. After 2014, I said, you know what, this is enough. And they did let me out of my contract. I was supposed to call the 2015 Belmont Stakes. But I didn't. And as soon as the new guy walked in, he calls a first Triple Crown winner in 37 years. I told you it was all about me. Well, the previously mentioned Todd Pletcher. Let's see what he did.
A native of Dallas, Texas, Todd Pletcher went out on his own as a head trainer after working as an assistant to Hall of Famer D. Wayne Lucas from 1989 through 1995. A graduate of the University of Arizona, Pletcher won his first race in January 1996 with Majestic Number at Gulfstream Park. A quarter century later, at the time of his election to the Hall of Fame, Pletcher had won a record 7 Eclipse Awards, owned the record for career earnings with more than $405 million, and ranked 7th all-time in wins with more than 5,100. Pletcher won the Kentucky Derby with Super Saver in 2010 and Always Dreaming in 2017, and the Belmont Stakes with Rags to Riches in 2007, Palace Malice in 2013, and Tapwrit in 2017.
Rags to Riches and Curlin, they're coming down to the wire. It's going to be very close, and it's going to be a filly in the Belmont.
When Rags to Riches defeated future Hall of Famer Curlin in the 2007 Belmont, it marked the first time in 102 years that a filly won the race. Pletcher has won 11 Breeders' Cup races, including the 2019 Classic with Vino Rosso.
And it's a vintage performance by Vino Rosso in the Breeders' Cup Classic.
He has led all North American trainers in earnings 10 times and trained 11 Eclipse Award-winning horses: Hall of Fame member Ashado, English Channel, Fleet Indian, Lawyer Ron, Left Bank, Rags to Riches, Shanghai Bobby, Speightstown, Wait a While, Uncle Mo, and Vino Rosso, and 20 horses that have earned $1.8 million or more. Pletcher has won a total of 60 individual meet training titles, 17 at Gulfstream, 16 at Belmont, 14 at Saratoga, 6 at Aqueduct, 5 at Keeneland, and 2 at Monmouth. According to Equibase data, Pletcher has won 708 graded stakes, including 166 Grade 1s through May of 2021. He won the Grade 1 Kentucky Oaks for the 4th time in his career in 2021. Pletcher has also won 4 or more editions of the Belle Dame, Champagne, Coaching Club American Oaks, Florida Derby, Mother Goose, Spinaway, Spinster, and Wood Memorial, among others, and has 4 victories in Canadian Triple Crown races.
To introduce you to Todd Pletcher, here is America's foremost New York Met fan, Mike Rapoli.
I was composed, I was ready to make my speech, and I watched a great video. There were 2 things that bothered me. One, I didn't see myself. One, I didn't see myself. And the second thing, the last clip was him winning the Wood Memorial by beating me by a nose with Barbonic about a month ago. So that's really good. Todd, you might as well come up. This is going to be a while. So so come on. It's easy if you wait here. Can you? All right, yeah, just all right. Stay where you are. It's going to be a while. I also want to thank Aaron and Mark Casse, because I was worried about my time allotment, but you guys went so long now I don't feel bad at all, so just so you know. All right. Also, got a text from Naira. Post time will now be 3 o'clock, Twilight Racing. All right, so 3 o'clock. Last race will be 9:45, so we'll do that. Todd called me. I can't hold this jacket. If I can't have one, I'm not going to hold it, okay? So Todd called me a couple months ago, and he was serious. So, God, when I get Todd serious, I get nervous. And he said, can I just talk to you about 2 things? And I just said, please tell me Dynamic One is good and Wit is good. He said, we're all fine there. Oh, okay. Then I didn't care. He said he wanted to talk to me about the Hall of Fame. So I thought, I knew what was coming, so tells me he wants to talk about the Hall of Fame. I honestly thought he was going to tell me that I was inducted into the Hall of Fame. I'm like, holy shit, it didn't happen. All right, what do you want to talk about? he said, I got two things. He said, I would like you to introduce me at the Hall of Fame. And, you know, it was probably the most humbling feeling of my life. I'm truly honored because, you know, I've known Todd for 15 years. I've watched him for 25. And to be able to, you know, introduce, you know, one of the greatest trainers in history, it was a huge honor. With so many people out there that could have introduced him. I heard he asked 9 people, they said no. But I'm here anyway, right? So the second thing, he said, I got one more thing. He said, can you keep it to under 5 minutes? Okay. Whew. I took a deep breath and I said, all right, I'll speak about myself for 4 minutes and a minute on you. But, you know, listen, I got into owning racehorses in 2004, and I watched this young trainer just keep winning races. And I sat there at Aqueduct or Belmont in Saratoga, and I watched my horses in the same races as him, and I kept watching something consistently happen. After the race, he would walk right by me and go to the winner's circle, and I would sit there, a loser. Okay, so if you can't beat him, you join him. So in 2008, I made a phone call to Todd and told him I was thinking about giving him horses. We spoke for an hour and a half. I spoke for an hour and 29 minutes. He spoke for a minute. I just didn't feel the timing was right. In 2009, we had dinner. I said, let's go to dinner. I had a great meet in 2009. I hold the Saratoga record. I was 0 for 36 as an owner. 0 for 36. It is a record, by the way, just so, and will never be broke, okay? 1 for 48? No, I was 0 for 36. They asked me how many, one of the reporters said, how many wins do you want to win this year at Saratoga? I said, 1. All right. So 2009, we start getting started with horses. We go to Rothman's. You know, he has a bottle of Grey Goose. I have a bottle of wine. And I could see he's got to get up at like 3 in the morning, and I go to bed at 3 in the morning, so we cover all 24 hours of the day. So, you know, I sat there that day, and I really told him this. I said, you know what, one day, and, you know, as he's drinking his Grey Goose, I'm going to have one of the fastest horses you've ever had. I'm going to do this. And just the next year, Uncle Mo breaks his maiden by 14 and a half lengths. It was like, oh my God, that was fast. You know, the relationship started with Uncle Mo and Stay Thirsty in that year. We've gone from client to partner to friend to brother. This friendship of 15 years hasn't been built on being in the winner's circle. Anybody can be a good friend when you are in the winner's circle. I mean, when I hate people and when in the winner's circle, I still love them, all right? I mean, but the relationship and the friendship has been built off of adversity. You know, adversity in the horse game and adversity in your personal life. And, you know, there isn't a better friend than Todd Pletcher. I mean, you know, when Uncle Mo got sick, I worried about 2 things, and he worried about 2 things. I worried about Uncle Mo, and he worried about Uncle Mo. I worried about Todd Pletcher, and he worried about Mike Rapoli. We were more worried about each other than we were, you know, for ourselves. I was like, I know how much it meant to him. He knows how much it meant to me. That was the first, you know. We had this unbelievable horse, a warrior. Todd's claimed 3 horses in his life, all 3 for me, by the way. There's a horse, Casse Electronica. Claimed him for $62,000, won the Charlestown Classic. One day he calls me up in tears, and I got really scared and nervous, and Casse had an accident at the track, and then died immediately. And, you know, that adversity where I knew he was so upset, and I was so upset. And then we've had a lot of family adversity, and he's always been there for me and my family, and I've always been there for him and his family. It's just something we do. Last year, I had my grandmother, who used to come to all the races. I don't know if you see her in the Rapoli stable hat. Once in a while, she was trampled in between wins, but it's okay. She wasn't doing well last year. One of the first big races that Todd won for me, Vino Rosso, she wasn't there. She passed away peacefully in her sleep on May 2nd, the Kentucky Derby Saturday at 7:30 in the morning. And there was no Kentucky Derby that day, but what a sign that she passed away on that day. A year later, it looked like we had no shot to get to the Derby, and Todd gets dynamic one into the Derby. So on a weekend that my family would have spent sad, miserable, you know, Todd did what he did best, gets people to the Derby. And instead of having a very sad weekend, we had the most beautiful weekend, my family. We came in 18th place, okay? Just so you know, there was one scratch, so there's only 19 horses, okay? Okay, so let's be very clear about that. So we beat a horse. I called him the next day, and I thanked him. I said, this was the best effing, I forget what that stands for, Derby I've ever had in my life. And I said, man, you have no idea how important this was for my family. You have no idea how much this meant to me. And, you know, I said, right now, combined, we're 0 for 7 in the Derby. And I said, I'd rather go 0 for 20 with you than go 1 for 1 with somebody else. And he said, I think we can do that in 5 years. So we're on our way. All right. So, all right. You know, when you talk about Todd, just quickly, you talk about consistency. I mean, doing what Mark does and Todd does and all the other trainers out here, it's 365 days a year. It's 4 in the morning, it's till 8 at night, it's 18-hour days. Horses don't celebrate Christmas, they don't celebrate Thanksgiving, they have no vacation time. I applaud everybody. I mean, you run a marathon every single day. And what he's done at the highest level, consistently, is unbelievable. I mean, 7 Eclipse Awards. It's like 30% of the years he's training, he won an Eclipse Award. 17 Gulfstream titles, 15 in a row. Who wins 15 in a row? I mean, it's just amazing. And the year that he didn't win it, in between, check that up. Okay, and I'll talk about that later. 14 Saratoga titles. Who wants to win in Saratoga? Everybody wants to win in Saratoga. 14, okay? He won his first Saratoga title in his 3rd year. That's unheard of. Who does that? It's just amazing. 5 Classics, 4 Kentucky Oaks, 2 Travers, and you know, $400 million. And I think this record is a record that nobody will ever shadow. Over 50 losing Kentucky Derby horses. Unbelievable. There is no way anybody, and he's got a lot more in him, so think about that. So, I mean, I got 13 coming my way. Can you imagine how many more we can get? I think he can get to 100. Yeah. You talk about versatility, you talk about the owners. I mean, he's got great owners, but the way he's just got this even keel personality, Joe Cool, even keel, doesn't get overly high, doesn't get overly low, very similar to myself. Yeah, that's the one thing we have in common. The ability to balance these owners, you know, who are, you know, spending big money on horses. They've been super successful. They know everything. They're the smartest people. Other than me, that's not true. But the other, you know, so to be able to do that isn't a feat for 25 years by itself. 11 Breeders' Cup wins, but 8 different divisions. 8 different divisions. He, you know, from Machado to English Channel to Vino Rosso to Uncle Mo, dirt or turf, 4 furlongs. I had from 4 furlongs to 1.75 miles. And Todd said, no, I won the Allen Jerkins, it was 2 miles at one time. So from 4 furlongs to 2 miles, you know, what has this guy mastered? He's mastered winning. He's mastered winning with a filly, with a colt, with a sprinter, with turf, with dirt and everything. I'll tell you, the only thing I know he hasn't done is he has not won a steeplechase race, you know. And we have talked about me claiming one day, and we're gonna win one of those one day too, trust me. So, you know, and then when you wanna talk about, I mean, there will never, ever be a trainer who is the stallion maker that Todd Pletcher is, okay? Unbelievable, and I'm unbelievable, seriously. Okay. And I'm not talking about Paint, Kyle, and Hannah, just so you guys know it. All right, all right. That was more the mayor than the sire, trust me, okay? But, you know, from More Than Ready, Spice Town, Uncle Mo, Scat Daddy, Quality Road, now their sons are out there, you know, producing. I mean, he is the greatest stallion maker in the history of the sport. And there's no one that's ever gonna do that. And he's just getting started, guys. I mean, it's just amazing. And then, you know, listen, it is a 1 in a million to get into this Hall of Fame. Everybody that's in this Hall of Fame, man, you're 1 in a million, you know. But for me, you know, Todd Pletcher is in the Hall of Fame of the Hall of Famers. He's in that top 1% of being in the Hall of Fame. And to me, it's amazing when I just talk to you guys about what he's done. But I know a lot of people are going to be very surprised here. He's only 54 years old. I thought he was 80, but I mean, he's only 54. Can you believe he's only a year older than me? Nobody can believe that. But, you know, I always thought he was Tracy's father. I didn't know that. So, but honestly, what if he does this for 15 more years, or he does it for 20 more years? We're going to have another ceremony for him. And hopefully I'll be in the Hall of Fame, Tom, but that's okay. So, you know, I mean, listen, he's an icon, he's a legend, and he's gonna go down as, you know, one of the greatest of all time. You know, for me, what sets him apart is Todd Pletcher, Hall of Fame person. Todd and I had a special day on June 26th of this year. We won the Triple Crown that day. My daughter was 6 years old, and we had a party for her at my house. And if you guys have met my wife, Maria, think about a Billy Madison type party. That's what we had, okay? So his daughter, Hannah, graduated high school. And so that was the Kentucky Derby. We got the Preakness with Joy's birthday. And then the Belmont Stakes it was June 26th is Todd's birthday. So to have a day where he didn't go to the track, and I was a father to my daughter, and he was a father to his daughter, and then the family came back to my house, and we celebrated life. We celebrated the real winner's circle. It was really, really special. And then we turned on the TV, and I think he had a horse in the Acorn. Oh, I just won a grade 1 with Giselle, or whatever. So he won a grade 1 that day, but obviously this day was even more important. He's a Hall of Fame boss. When you go there in the staff, you go there 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, they're there. If they leave him, many successful trainers out there, amazing. He's a Hall of Fame friend, unbelievable. Just a great, great guy that always will make time for you. He's a Hall of Fame son, okay? Big Hall of Fame son. When I speak to Mr. Pletcher, JJ, he'll say, Mike, he's so good, I couldn't even have screwed him up. It's his exact line, you know? And when I speak to Mrs. Pletcher, you know, she said, I had one child, and I stopped at perfection. That's what she always told me. She told me she stopped at perfection. So I have a younger brother. My mother should have done the same thing. Okay, no, okay. So, he's a great husband, but Tracy is a better wife, okay? And that's not even debatable, by the way. So when Todd officially made the Hall of Fame, I text Todd and Tracy, and I congratulated both of them, because Todd and Tracy made the Hall of Fame today. He doesn't make it without Tracy. Tracy doesn't make it without him. That's an unbelievable team that balances each other out. They're a great team, and without Tracy, he's a great father. You know, I watched these kids in front of me go from being 3 foot tall to 6'2" quickly. There's Peyton, Kyle, and Todd's favorite, Hannah. Okay. You guys are very lucky, you two boys. If Todd had Hannah first, I don't think you'd be here today. So, thank God you guys were first, but the ability to be a father and say, hey, I'm taking Kyle to Gulfstream, I'm gonna spend a couple days just with Kyle. Peyton's gonna go to Ocala with me, we're gonna spend 2-3 days with him. Hannah's flying today with me to Monmouth and she's gonna come to the Haskell. The way he makes time for his family is amazing. You know, it's just amazing. So, you know, he is, as great as he is probably in a time where athletes and racing ambassadors or, you know, there's so much negative news. There isn't anybody that doesn't, even if you lose to him, you love Todd Pletcher. He represents this sport at the highest level, and nobody can represent this sport any better. If you have an opportunity, go up, talk to him, take a picture, get an autograph, ask him a question. He's amazing. He's a gem to this sport. He's a gem to this industry. I don't think people realize how lucky we are to have a person like Todd Pletcher. So I want to introduce officially. I had this joke for 15 years that I have to let go today. It's real tough. Every time Todd and I over the last 15 years got into a fight, we would argue. I don't know if you guys know, but we debate once in a while. I would always say, even when I thought he was right, what do you know? You're not even a Hall of Famer. Please, leave me alone. That joke is retired today, unfortunately. Okay? My friend, Todd Pletcher.
Thank you, Mike. You actually kept it under half an hour. I'm impressed. I can't tell you how humbled I am to join, this esteemed group. So many of these guys were my childhood heroes, role models, mentors, competitors, guys like Jerry Bailey, who won my first race, Jose Santos, who lost my first race. Jose, don't feel bad. There's been 17,458 more since then. And of course, Wayne Lucas, great mentor. After I went out on my own, the most common question I get is, what is the one thing you learned working for Wayne Lucas? And the answer has evolved over the years. The answer is, there's not one thing. It's everything. Everything matters. Everyone matters. Every horse matters. Every horse owner matters. And I made the mistake in 2004, my first Eclipse Award acceptance speech, of trying to name people and thank people. And I forgot a few, and I've spent the next 17 years regretting it. So I'm not going to mention everyone who's contributed to this. It's been an army. I've been blessed with some of the best team members, coworkers, friends that have contributed so much to this. It really is a team award, in my opinion. Now you have to get a lot of breaks along the way to get here. And I got a huge break when Wayne Lucas offered me the opportunity to go to work for him. And not only because I consider him to be the greatest trainer of all time, and he had a successful stable and a successful group, but it was an all-star cast of assistant trainers as well. And to learn from those guys, I feel like no one has been more influential in the way that I try to conduct my business than Wayne's son, Jeff. Jeff was a detail-oriented person. He was driven, he was motivated, he was a skilled horseman, and he had the unique ability to make those around him better. And there's no doubt in my mind, if he didn't have a tragic accident, that Jeff would have been inducted into the Hall of Fame years ago. Biggest break of all I got was when I was born to my parents. They've supported me at every level, every step of the way. I know when I told my mom that, I was thinking about going on my own, opening up my own barn, she said, give it your all, and I want to help you. I want to co-sign a loan for you to try to help you get started, and I want you to set up your barn first class, just like Wayne would. So we did that. A couple weeks go by, and we were talking. She said, how's it going? I said, well, it's going pretty well, but it's damned expensive to set up a barn like Wayne. I think we should have taken a bigger loan. but we powered through, and I got started at Hialeah. Gulfstream denied me stalls. Time, I didn't think that was great, but it turned out to be a blessing. And I started off with 7 horses, and 4 of them were owned by my dad and a lady named Betty Massey from Dallas. And now this was key because not only did I really need those 4 horses, but this was the one account when payroll was getting tight, I could call and ask for a check in advance for next month's training bill, and there was always a FedEx the next day. Of course, training horses is tough on the family life. My wife Tracy, Peyton, Kyle, and Hannah, we've sacrificed a lot. I've missed a lot of soccer games and school nights. But one of the cool things about being a horse trainer is pretty much every day can be bring your kid to work day, and we've shared in a lot of great moments too. I thank you for all your support. And I want to close out by stealing a line from one of my longest supporters, one of my favorite supporters. And Cott Campbell used to always close out with these words. And it's not going to sound nearly as cool coming from me because he was a cool guy, but most of all, I want to thank the horses, and the horses. Thank you.
Oh, by the way, Mike Rapoli, you mentioned about, maybe getting into the Hall of Fame yourself. If indeed that would ever happen, there's no need for you to show up for your acceptance speech. We've already got it on videotape. Our special thanks to Fassig-Tipton, our sponsors, Hammond Communications Group, Keeneland Broadcast Services, and the New York Racing Association, and we will see you here, same time, same place, next year.